Hi everybody and welcome to Teen Book Tuesday. My name is Lorie and I'm the teen librarian at Manlius Library, and I'm continuing the series of telling you about some of my favorite books that I highly recommend just generally in the teen room, because it's not always easy to find the brand new book that you're interested in, and in the summer there's a lot more time to read for most of us. And so this week I'm going to tell you about some historical fiction, which is a genre I've read forever. I have always loved reading about true events and fictionalized tales of real people and just things that happened through history. We're going to start with this one. It's called White Rose by Kip Wilson. And this is based on actual events. This is the story of Sophie Scholl. And she is a German university student in the 1940s in Germany under the Hitler regime. And it is the true story of a nonviolent protest against what the atrocities that the Nazi regime were carrying out. And she begins a pamphlet campaign. And it's her story. This is one of the best books of young heroism I've ever read, and I highly recommend it. It's called White Rose by Kip Wilson. And it starts out February 18th, 1943, Gestapo headquarters. The cars screech to a halt. Officers pull us out by the arms, haul us inside and off to separate rooms. I take a deep breath and prepare to fight for our lives. And again, it's based on a true story. Next up, this one takes place in the United States in the 1950s, and it is about Chinese American Lily Hu and Kathleen Miller. And it's called Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Melinda Lowe. And things in the 1950s were pretty dangerous for Chinese Americans. The Red Scare was happening. Everybody was on edge. It just wasn't safe. And it certainly wasn't safe to be a lesbian Chinese American in the 1950s. And they discover the Telegraph Club, which is a place where they could actually just be who they were without fear. And it's historical fiction. It's based on a true era in American history. It's not necessarily based on actual people, but there's a lot in this book that is also relevant for today. It's fabulous. It's one of the best books I've read recently. It came out this year in January, and I will be extremely surprised if there's not a lot of awards given to this book. It's called Last Night at the Telegraph Club. It's extraordinarily real. This is for anybody who has ever loved anyone or anything with a purpose. Okay, this next one is called Projekt 1065. It's another World War II book, but I didn't grab it so much because of the book, although it's wonderful. I grabbed it because of the author. The author is Alan Gratz. And Alan Gratz writes some of the best nonfiction I've ever read. And I don't say that meaning he writes some of the best young people's nonfiction or historical fiction, or I said nonfiction, I meant historical fiction. Some of the best young adult historical fiction. He writes just overall some of the best historical fiction I've ever read. This one happens to be about a teenager who joins the Hitler Youth as a spy. He's also written Projekt B3087. His new one is called Ground Zero, and it is the story of two teenagers on separate 9/11 occasions. One teenager who is in the towers on 9/11 in 2001, and then another one who is a teenager on September 11th, 2019 in Afghanistan, and how their stories cross. But anything by Alan Gratz is absolutely amazing. And you can find his stuff in the children's room and in the teen room because it's really crossover. Anybody can read these and enjoy them. Alex and Eliza. You may have seen In the Heights, which might lead you to see Hamilton, or maybe you're already a Hamilton fan, or maybe you're just a fan of historical fiction or American history. Well, Melissa de la Cruz has written a trilogy about Alexander Hamilton and Elizabeth Schuyler. And the first one is called Alex and Eliza. And it's a novelized story of their love story. It's wonderful. It is everything summertime needs. It's just a really, really great historical fiction love story. Alex and Eliza. This is the first one by Melissa de la Cruz. As I said, this is part of a trilogy. One of my favorite historical fiction books, which actually is a classic, is Jane Eyre. And Cynthia Hand, Brodie Ashton, and Jodi Meadows have taken women named Jane through history and in literature and rewritten their stories. And this one is called My Plain Jane. I'm going to read you the back because it's fun. A fantastic, romantic, comedic, entirely, but not really, faithful retelling of Jane Eyre. You may think you know the story. After a miserable childhood, penniless orphan Jane Eyre becomes a governess at Thornfield Hall. There she meets dark, brooding Mr. Rochester. Despite their significant age gap, yikes, and his uneven temper, double yikes, they fall in love. And reader, she marries him. We have a different story to tell. This is the story of Jane Eyre, but it is the story of Jane Eyre, and she's friends with Charlotte Bronte, who actually wrote Jane Eyre, and there's a twist. Jane can see ghosts, and there's murder, and there's a mystery, and there's adventure, and it is funny, and there's romance, and it's just a great book. There's also My Calamity Jane, which is the story of Calamity Jane, and there's one more, My Lady Jane, which is about Jane Eyre, or Jane Austen. Okay, so I'm sorry, it's not about Jane Austen. It's about Queen Jane in King Henry VIII's time. But this one is My Plain Jane, and this is the story of Jane Eyre as you have never read it before. They're huge fun. And finally, if you like your historical fiction a little less historical and a little closer to home, I highly recommend Eleanor Park by Rainbow Rowell. This takes place in the 80s. It takes place in 1986, as a matter of fact, and it is the story of Eleanor and Park. It is a love story and a coming of age, and the 1980s pop culture is absolutely spot on. Set over the course of one school year, this is the story of two star-crossed 16-year-olds, smart enough to know that first love almost never lasts, but brave and desperate enough to try. This one is real. It takes place in a school year. It is absolutely wonderful, and everything Rainbow writes is fabulous. So there you go. Some pretty wide-ranging historical fiction. Something for everybody. If you saw something you like, pop over to our website and put it on hold. Or better yet, come into the library. Come talk to us. Come talk to me. I'm happy to tell you about more books that you might enjoy. And we've missed you. We're open full hours now, so come on in. My name is Lorie. I'm the teen librarian at Manlius Library. You can sign up for the Teen Summer Reading Club still over on our website, manliuslibrary.org. Just click on the summer reading tile. You can find me here on our YouTube channel every Tuesday at 2:30 for more bookish news. And next week I'll be telling you about some realistic fiction, contemporary realistic fiction, a little romance, a little trauma, a lot of drama. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time. Happy reading.